think that might, if you're not going to go in and make some assumptions and say, well, from these plug numbers that I got, I'm just going to assume that it's 60%, 20%, 10% or whatever on those ones, and then I know the ones that are subs, I know the ones that we did, how much is labor, how much is equipment, how much is material. Um, you would have to guess. You'd have to do that. Otherwise, just like you said, your upper level thinking is going to be, well, we weighted them on this item, this item, this item because of the risk here, and yeah, which is, I mean, that's a hell of a step right there in itself. So,
I mean, because I could go through and take that arbitrarily, but
yeah, I mean,
actually breaking it up into weighing it for labor and equipment and materials at a time.
well, unless they give you the information
Say
for
that,
them.
like, this item is 60%.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
there's no, I don't know.
You'd be fucking guessing, right? And that's why it's probably not worth taking that risk and spending that time on doing it when it's something that's not really concrete.
Do you think it'd be a bonus if we explained that? Like, hey, we could have distributed, we had, labor, equipment, materials for each of these items.
I mean, there's your line for your answer right there. Our intent was to weight our indirects and our margin based off of labor, material, equipment, and subs differently. However, we were just given straight plug numbers for direct costs, so we distributed it evenly dollar per dollar, but we went on our bid close and determined based on lump sum items and risky overrun items or underrun items to balance them up or down.
Yeah, here's what we had last year: profit margin of 15%, sales tax of 8, total indirect 850.
I mean, we've been pretty lucky so far. Usually we have either moved or zero.
Yeah.
So that's an item that they have been known to throw out there too. A lot of the times they don't. Well, I'm not sure if they do, is where they'll actually ask you to figure out some of the indirects. Actually, no, they never do that in the heavy civil one. I know they do in a lot of the other categories, pre-con and
Yeah, I don't think they
commercial.
ever ask you to bid indirects.
Yeah, where they'll ask you to,
I mean, it wouldn't
tell
be
us
that.
what your staff is going to be on the job, and then they grill you. They're like, oh, you're going to have one engineer to build a
It could be
$600 million
done.
job.
What are indirects again?
So indirects are all your overhead costs.
Your management, your
Okay.
your main office, your
Trailers.
job setup, any trailers, any
Mobilization, that wouldn't be indirect, would it?
It can be. I mean,
It's everything other than performing the work,
Oh,
pretty much.
the way that Granite does it is generally we don't, in our bids, we don't have a mobilization item, even though it's a line item. We have our indirect costs that have all of that. Your management, your supervision, your small tools account, your expense account stuff, your mobilizations, your on-site moves, your developing of water, all of those things. Yeah, and then we'll suck out a bunch of that money, and that's how you suck out that by picking the number that you want to put in your mobilization cost. But in our bid itself, it's not actually in there. And that's one of the things that can be an answer to a lot of questions, or they might grill you. It's like, oh, well, we gave you a dirt operation. If it doesn't say specifically in the dirt operation that you're supposed to develop the water in there or something like that, you're like, oh, well, we have that in our indirects.
What do you mean develop the water in there? What does that mean?
So usually you have a permit process for your water. You have to pay a certain amount.
You gotta buy water
To use, right?
to use,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you have water purchase, or like developing water. A lot of the times will be like these big jobs that are out in the middle of nowhere.
You can drill wells.
You get build your own well.
Like that, literally developing
sure.
the water
Yeah,
source.
Or it's even just purchasing your meters.
Yeah, or installing a whole brand new meter where you gotta, like you said, get all the permits, do all the hot taps, run a line off the water line,
For that, something like 30 grand.
running it thousands of feet to get to where your job's at. Like that's something that would be. You have a very good chance that they could give that to you as one. It might not necessarily be one of the items, but it might be one of the things that they're like, hey, lot of the times you'll make assumptions and bid balances based on overrunning items or underrunning items, and so that's a hard sell. What that means is you've done a takeoff, and you've sold it to yourself in your mind and to your bosses that you can your takeoff on the job was better than the owner's takeoff on the job.
Okay.
So you either find where they missed, or like, and they're like, oh well, we think they made an addendum or they made a change, but they didn't eliminate this item or something like that. Or you say, shit, here's the box that the dirt has to go in. There's nowhere else the dirt has to go. They're telling me it's 60,000 yards, but here's the dimensions of the box. It's only 30,000 yards. You know, something like that. So that's where you determine underruns or overruns.
But specifically in underrun, I mean, using those terms apply directly to what you're talking about in the box. Those are quantities, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you
So
underrun
saying
a
if
quantity,
the job has 60,000 yards import, but you're coming up with only 30,000.
you
that's a
underrun
huge-
your number.
Yeah,
right?
you're underrunning huge.
Okay.
So what our whole thing with balancing that we were talking about is, if you have, say you 60,000 yards, if you have $100,000 of your indirects and your margin in that item, and you only end up bringing in half of that item, that means $50,000 that you had counted on to pay for salaries and profit and all that stuff. You're never going to end up getting. They're gonna keep that because you didn't perform that work. So ones that you want to underrun, you estimate them at what the bare cost is to do them, the direct cost is to do them, or even below the direct cost if you really have balls. So that's one of those strings that's it's super tricky, and that's where really the art of estimating comes in. And when you have like the chief estimators and area managers and stuff that are going to be in running these things, where they're going to get like total hard-ons when you start talking about that stuff. But you have to be right, because they're big risks. They're opportunities, but they're risks, right? You know, you bid an item at a penny, then you better fucking have a plan
Support.
for how that's gonna go. Because I've been on jobs where we've done that before, and bids where we've done that before, and it raises the fucking red flags from everybody, and you gotta be ready to go to battle on that.
What
Not-
are like $1 items usually be?
like a base import. Like we had a job where we told ourselves that we could produce all of the class 2 base on the job by pulverizing the existing material, and that's all was tied into the roadway X item, and we just put money in there and we said, hey, we're not going to bring one truckload of base in here, we're going to produce it all on site, and so they're not going to pay us for it since we're not trucking it in. That's kind of an example one.
You know, like you said, I'm sure it take a while to get into the nitty gritty of where to play with the numbers and what to raise and what to lower based on other factors. But yeah, I'd like to get into it. But
Yeah,
I think
I
it's,
just
it's
don't think there's
not
enough time right now.
feasible to have as tight an understanding for somebody like you or I who have
Yeah.
not done this yet for next week's on project. It's all well and good to learn about it, but as far as digging to that extent, it's
Yeah.
Good point. So moving on then.
Yeah, moving on.
Schedule worth 200 points. So like we just said, it's worth a third of what those other 2 things that we just looked at on. So if you have one person that their entire job is just to do the schedule, and then you have one person whose entire job it is to do the proposal worksheet and the bid submittal and all that stuff, then you're probably not utilizing your resources correctly based on the point spread that there is out there, right? So take that into account. Going over the schedule itself, detail is good. Too much detail is bad. Do what's required in the specs. The specifications will have the minimum requirements of what needs to be on the schedule, especially if it's a Caltrans job. Do what's required in the specs. Stream protection plan, so that's like the random thing that they threw out there, and they're like, hey, figure out a stream protection plan. The other one that we had on the other job was a safety plan for the airport or whatever. It's like, how are you going to give us the safety plan for these operations that you have working on an airport? Come up with that. worth more than just one of the standard items that they give you, but not as much as the other stuff.
I work in the exclusively in the federal world right now. When they do like your SWIFT or AMP or whatever you're doing, there's a super particular form that you're gonna use DD format. Same thing to come up with stream protection systems. But if they ask for that, is it gonna be a particular format, or just you write up your report in whatever format you have, but it has to address these issues?
If they give you that format to be able to do that, then yeah, you better use it. But if that resource isn't available to you, then you're gonna have to come up with it on your own. If you think that it's something that should be provided to you that you have not been able to find, then that's the RFI that you ask, right? Or the question that you ask them when they come in the room because you don't want to tell everybody else about it. But even if you tell everyone else about it, you're going to be the one that gets the points for asking the question, right? And gets the
Is there specified format, specified guidelines? Because this is something like Google go through it.
is that
Within the
this
California
year's?
system or
Yeah.
other state systems like Nevada or Arizona when they do a whole this competition, is there specified formats and forms in general?
I haven't seen
I don't
it.
think that like question they're gonna give you is gonna be that intense. It's just gonna be like design, give a rough design for password. You know?
Right.
That would be more like drawing of how you're gonna do your, you know, like a work for your stream. How you gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not
just,
like a full-on split plan where you gotta.
well,
like,
no,
fill
no,
out
I
your
get that.
form.
I'm just saying, like, if you came to me tomorrow and you said, hey, dude, we're gonna be doing work. I need you to put in ground wells in the 23 area of Pendleton. You're gonna need to give me a site plan to protect the parish. I know exactly what that format looks like because there's a specified. This is what your form's gonna look at. It's gonna say figure 1 on the right. It's gonna say site contract number underneath it. I'm just for something like a stream plan in the federal world. Somebody says stream plan. I'm sure if you work federal, you work federal. Yeah. If they say stream plan, it's like here's your fucking form.
Mhm.
And this is exactly what it's going to look like. Basically, make your picture of Bluebeam, put it in this square, and write your contract number here. So I didn't know if they were to ask that here, is there a specified form? But if there is, obviously they give it to us.
Yeah.
And if not, say, hey man, whenever they come through, they just want to check, make sure we don't have a special form for stream plan or whatever.
They want it to look a certain way, they'll give us something to get you. I mean, they know that we're gonna assume a lot of stuff, so I mean, if you're just gonna put, like, I mean, even these, like, in our bid documents, we're supposed to have stuff notarized. We can't actually go to notary, so you just draw a fake little seal.
Your little
sign
fucking
it.
stamp, dude?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, we need to get one.
I'd stamp with my hand. I would draw stuff on it. Stamp it.
I think my brother's. Does he? Yeah. He'll probably do that.
Is it his PE stamp or something like that?
No, it's a notary.
Oh, it's notary stamp?
Yeah.
I'd definitely grab it. We
Oh,
must
dude,
try
no
to
one
walk
granted
into
assholes, they
notary.
might give you some shit for it. They're like, so we see you used a notary here. Did you go to outside resources for this, or did you illegally use a notary stamp?
Yeah, they might knock you down.
How do you think that goes with our code of conduct? I mean, that's what I would
So
say.
like, what I'm getting at is they'll like a question. They didn't give us something like that last year, but if they do, it's mainly gonna be like, oh, give us a drawing of what you think this is gonna work, right? It's not gonna be like
A 30-page.
put together a switch plan. Like,
They say a stream protection plan, they're saying a stream
I see that as like a drawing. Like, okay, we have our turbidity barriers here. Like,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a drawing, and then that might be a work plan analysis of what you have to do, and a breakdown of the specification requirements that are given to you.
Okay, like
Because
I said.
you know they didn't just pull it out of the air. It says in there what some of the requirements are. So I mean, right here, here's your guys' problem this year. Takeoff and estimate items, only 750 points. So each one's going to be worth 75 points.
Yeah, at the end, it really doesn't come out to that much.
Yeah, right. So if you're spending 10 hours of your day for 75 points, that's because 2,000 of your points are
They jog.
are everything that's going in, and you're only talking about 75 of them for each item. So it's important. It's important to have that understanding. It's important to do a really, really good job on those 75 points and show them that you know the work on that operation, but not to get caught in the weeds and spend all of your time there because that's not where the points are at. Go where the butter's at, right? The bid submittal
last year they gave us.
Oh, you opened yours up from last year.
Yeah, so this is just the basic problem instructions that they told us. Okay, here's the ones you guys are going to provide quantity takeoff for, and then here's the subs, and then it kind of tells you what they expect to see in your binder. They kind of break it out on some of the requirements, and then down general assumptions, project assumptions. And then down here, these are those specific from spec and contract questions that we had to answer.
So those are ones you guys go diving through the plans and specs,
Dude, that looks like easy picking.
trying to find the answer to. Yeah.
Some, some of them
I
are
mean,
kind of hard
yeah,
to
some
find.
are some of them can be pretty difficult.
Yeah. I mean,
They'll hide.
plus searching through plans and specs is, I mean, that's where hopefully they give them, if you guys get Adobe, and so you can Adobe search stuff.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Because
I thought that was a given. We may not have some kind, we may not have Adobe.
You may not
No,
have.
no, no.
You
might
may not have
digital
searchable.
Yeah.
documents,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
which means you're flipping through paper, and it might be a spec book that you have. I deal with the specs every day. I probably spent an hour and a half today word searching through and reading specifications because I was writing RFIs and letters that were, talking shit and starting fights. So you better be right
No,
if,
shit.
if you're gonna start saying hey, you guys owe us money for delay and this is why. So that's what these questions on a lot of them are. I'm sure you were allowed to mix asphalt binder and aggregate together for production. So
I just on the table that was in the specs.
yeah, I mean that's section
If it's
39-1, right? For material. I know that. You guys aren't gonna know that. You're gonna start having to flip through and find that stuff. But yeah, you're probably not gonna have a scanner where you can scan stuff.
But I mean, like last year, I mean, with these, there was a couple asphalt questions. Jake did all the asphalt stuff, so he had all his specs all right out. So we had to go, oh hey Jake, where's your specs for this? And we start flipping through, boom, there. it
Yeah,
is
I
right
already
there.
have every item you have. You should have all your Caltrans standards for this section printed out. So I had binder. I still have it with every single item of work I can do, and in each of those, it's got all the Caltrans standards, and it's got basically everything I need.
That you made there, because obviously once you
No,
say
I
that's what you
made
See
say.
that
all
last
last
question
year.
they asked us?
Okay,
So,
highlighted
so
that?
then I can, if I get a Caltrans job or I get something, I can open up my shit and it's all right there.
I think we said exhaust.
But I thought Cal,
Forget what our
Caltrans
answers were.
specs is like a million pages, right? Pretty standard.
For standards, yeah, but then they'll reference you to like Green Book or whatever. You can print out the section.
That's what I was saying. You filled that binder when you got to the problem.
Yeah, I had it
Okay.
before. Yeah, I made that throughout last year.
Should have been a pretty easy question for
That's
200
saying
points.
softball right there.
So, how long is it going to take you to look up the answer of that? It's worth 20 points. It's worth a quarter of what an entire item is worth that you'll spend how many hours on an item on?
That's like on the first page of the contract documents. I remember it was like right there.
Yeah.
It says who the owner is and how many contract or what the duration was.
So one of the reasons why that's in there is one, time management, so that you're managing your time to go answer those questions, and yet you don't leave those free points on the table. Because I guarantee you, there's a lot of teams that get caught in the weeds on everything else and put that shit off. Go to this year's. Or,
Scoot overview.
yeah, I mean that's.
It's just that's kind of important right there where you're just talking about just audit trail readability.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me to go to?
This year's problem.
Right there.
So specific plans and questions 200, schedule 200, project analysis. Project analysis.
I think that's where like you figure out what you fucked up on the job.
Yeah, I mean that could be any number of things, right? It could be some random thing that they give you. It could be them asking you to go over the phasing and the staging of the job. That's one that they go after all the time where they say, hey, we want you to analyze the phasing or analyze the dirt flow on the job or something weird like that. That's kind of what that one is opening itself up to, I would think. proposal worksheet. It's only 200 points in there, but yeah, still.
Is this, I'm looking, I don't, on the other one, I saw that one of them, like, takeoffs wasn't 750. Are these point values gonna change?
This is yours.
Yeah.
This is current. So this is what was, this is the.
This is what we're gonna
statement for this
Yes,
year.
yes.
Okay.
Scroll down a bit.
Where it's not okay.
5:30 submitted, 9:30 p.m. Yeah, they'll probably change that.
They'll put 9 in them, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys know, I guess, for those of you that haven't done it before, what they're gonna do, 9:30, everyone comes in and has to have their shit in there. You guys should have your shit in there at 9:50. Or that should be your goal. For 15 minutes before bid time, be sitting down there in the room. I don't know if you guys are allowed to have cell phones on you or something like that. You can leave one person up in the room. You can be sitting down in there, have 2 items open, watching the bid clock that's in there until, call it 5 minutes before bid time, and then call it at bid time. That you'll fill in your last couple items and turn them in. But I mean, try and have all your stuff together, and your objective should be to be early and ready to go, and then just sitting there waiting for the time to fill in the last things. Because they might really, like, the call-ins probably aren't going to go up to the last minute. I know my boss used to run this thing back in the day, and he used to have this thing where he would hand you a cut at the door when you came through, a price cut, and anyone who had their stuff open was able to take that price cut, got like a 50-point bonus or something like that, something random. So that's kind of something to be ready for. But you get in there, you get to the bid opening, everyone turns in their books, and generally what they do is just like an official bid opening would be. They'll get your envelope. It's usually a sealed envelope. They open it up, they read yada yada yada.
Make sure you have your stuff.
Yeah, they'll read your. Yeah, they'll say, addendum is verified, bid respond is intact, subs are listed, their price is so and so, and then they'll write that up on the board, and they'll do the next team. Usually they open them in the order that they're received. That's how that works. And then they have all the bid prices up there, and then what they'll say is, all right, our bid price on the job was this, and then who's ever closest to that bid price is who they're going to give preference to for when you want to choose to present. Is that how they did it for you guys last year too? And so if you have the closest to Granite's bid price, then you have your choice of if you want to be first or you want to be last. So that's a decision that you guys have to make on where you want to be. Obviously, this isn't going to affect the mock problem because there is nothing else going against you. But our take on everything was when we did the first one, I think we were the second closest to the number, and we took the last slot in it. And then when we went to nationals, we were non-responsive, and so we were the last person, but everybody else picked all the other ones and left us with the last spot. So we were like, we will pick. Well, no, there was 8 teams, and there was 2 non-responsive teams, and we had the closest price to the bid price, but we're non-responsive, so we were second to last. So every team was like, I'm gonna go first, I'm gonna go second, I'm gonna go third, I'm gonna go fourth. So we're gonna go last. Our thought was, we think we can do a better job than everyone else, and we want to leave the last impression in their minds. Or the other way to go about it is, we think that we're better than everyone else. We're going to go first and set the bar high, and everyone is going to be thinking about that as they judge everyone else going through it. The problem is if you go first, you're in the morning, you get it done, it's behind you. Like you got that weight off your shoulders. You go last, you have another 7 hours of preparation time to be able to go through and
But you really
Yeah, I was
polish
gonna say
it.
7 hours is nice.
polish it, get a fucking nap, get some sleep in. You have to turn in all your materials at 7 a.m. So you turn in your bid that night, they say, hey, good job, and you go back to the room and you start cranking, and you crank think about that too. They're looking at 14 sets of submittals and 14 presentations. I mean, it's a fucking grind for the judges that are in there
Yeah,
for 9 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, no shit, right?
They don't have anything to do the day prior, huh?
Well, they give you guys shit during the day, but that's
Yeah,
about
they
it.
just come and mess with you.
But they'll drink the night of.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
So, what was I gonna say? Yeah, standing out is important, and it's obvious too. If you ask any of the people that have ever judged it, and it's super obvious who has a chance and who doesn't have a chance. And there's a lot of competition at the top generally. Like the top 6 teams are all pretty good, but then there's going to be a handful of them that are just cut above. And the thing that makes that obvious is the organization, the knowledge of the plans and specs, and I mean the presentation skills are important, but the actual skills are what's
How well do you know the job is what it comes down to.
how well
So
do
the,
you know
the,
the plans and
the
specs.
points from the presentation are gonna be distributed not only from the presentation, but the Q and A, right?
Yes.
I didn't see, there's not a 2 separate parts of that, right? It's all rolled into one?
They don't tell you, but they have a structure. But they don't tell you what the
And
structure
that's
is.
the most subjective part of this whole competition, which is kind of,
It's the presentation.
you can claim bullshit, but I mean, it's kind of, it is what it is. So,
Yeah, if you go in and fucking drop dick and drop dick.
yeah, you have to leave no doubt in their mind that you just crushed it. And if you leave them any doubt, that's going to lead them to question what you're doing, if you even do what you're
Down a
doing.
couple points. So there's probably, safe to say, there's probably a higher percentage weight on the Q and A portion, because that really tells the judges.
No.
No?
I mean, you're talking about usually it's does it say down there 18-minute presentation, 12-minute Q&A? That's generally how they run it.
Okay.
Save format presentations. I mean, who's to say? I'm trying to remember back like our reading things, and I want to say that it was like 2/3 of it was
Oh, they switched it. It used to be 18 and 12, now it's 15 and 10.
200-point deduction if you go over 15 minutes by a second.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, so you want to keep it at like right at 14.
That's why 7 hours of sweet prep time would be pretty awesome.
Get it down to a time. Yeah, that's why we.
Guarantee you hit 14 and 45.
Yeah, because I think last year it was supposed to be 18, and we had rehearsed it so many times, went through it, and we had it down to like just even the cadence of what the way we were talking was just right on point. All the slide changes and everything. We went up right to like 7:30, and then there was like 30 seconds of like tear down and go sit down, and then boom, they got right into the questions, and it was right at 10 to 12 minutes. They only asked us like maybe 2 or 3 other questions that weren't on their 10-question prompt.
Oh, we have the 10
So they
questions.
asked you those questions in the Q&A session?
Which they're non-prompted ones?
The 10 questions that they gave you in the problem, they asked you in the Q&A?
No. They like they have their standard
I got
10
you.
scripted ones
That
they
they
ask
ask
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah, they only got into like 2 because we answered most of everything in our presentation, and then there was like 2 little questions that they felt like that we didn't cover
Mm-hmm.
in the presentation. They asked us on that. One was basically we were missing 30,000 yards of dirt that we could go to the west side of the job, and didn't catch that. And then we were supposed to redirect traffic off the freeway, build on and off ramps first
Yeah.
to redirect traffic. That's our false word.
Presentation, problem materials, okay, so that's the problem in there. I mean, I think that should help you guys realize how to prioritize the way that you attack the problem. I don't know if do the guys from Flatiron have this year's problem? I don't know if they printed it out or not. I mean, it would be great to.
think so.
I'd shoot him. I'd email him that and say, hey, they post because that was posted within the last week or two. Say, hey, they posted the problem. Eric
They actually posted our problem
not the problem
No.
itself, but the statement or whatever
Yeah.
the hell you want to call it.
Basically the guidelines for that.
Civil business.
Yeah, so it would be good for them to set up your mock problem with
Similar to that.
with that knowledge in mind, so that they know where specifically they should be targeting the work for you guys to be doing. So the big thing is that you will get crushed on if you don't do it is answer the problem. Read the problem very, very closely along with everything that you submit in, and make sure that you answer everything that is in that problem that they ask you to do. If you do something that's not in there, then or you don't do something that's in there, then you're gonna get crushed because that just like bid documents are. That's the way we play the game. You have to follow the rules of this.